Yep, that was definitely an ending. Halloween Ends has just hit cinemas. It is apparently the final film in the franchise. I think we all know that's not true, but certainly in this iteration, it is billed as the last one. It's the planned third part of a trilogy that has now finally come to a close. So yeah, is it any good? Let's talk about it. Now this is going to be my spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to give too many details away about story and whatnot here. I'm going to try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I will be doing a spoiler review, so look out for that tomorrow. But yeah, this one, spoiler-free. All I will give with regards to story is that it centres obviously on the character of Laurie Strode and her granddaughter, but also this new character that we are introduced to in the opening sequence. He ends up killing this kid by accident, but it looks like a murder, and because of that, his life is essentially made miserable by the people in the town. He gets off, so to speak. He's found innocent, but that doesn't stop the town from blaming him and calling him a murderer. Now, like I say, I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, because that's the setup of the film, and that's the new character we're presented with, and how he interacts with Laurie and her granddaughter. It's really the whole basis of the story and for where it goes and what it's trying to explore. I do think that this film, I would say this film is to Halloween what Jason Goes to Hell is to Friday the 13th. I think that fans of Michael Myers, fans of the Halloween formula, seeing Michael Myers do his thing in bloody fashion, they're going to be the people who aren't really going to take to this film, I don't think. If you're someone who, you like that stuff, but you're quite happy for it to go in new directions, you're more interested in having a story with actual characters be presented to us, then I think you'll get more out of this. I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. Now, that's not to say it's perfect. It's, after all, it's still the same creative team behind the other two that preceded it. So it still has certain issues, story-wise, and the way that it's presented, certain holes, certain questions that are left kind of hanging, or just aren't dealt with satisfactorily enough. However, of the three, and do take this with a pinch of salt, because I loved Halloween 2018, and then on second watch, not so much. I loved Halloween Kills even more than I loved Halloween 2018, and then on second watch, definitely not as much. So I'm going to say right now, I think this is the best of the three. I think a lot of people will say I'm smoking crack, and I think the majority of those people will be the people who came to this film to see Michael Myers do his thing. I think those people will be disappointed, but there you go. What we get instead is actually a character study, both of Laurie and her family dynamics, this new kid that has entered the fray, and the townspeople. We see what happens to a town that has suffered this tragedy, and there's a particular moment in the film that, yes, you can say it hammers the point on the head, but really what this film explores, one of the aspects it explores, is the idea of how we live in this world today where people are very happy to kind of jump into a victim mentality, where if a crime is done to a particular person or a particular group of people, a lot of people these days almost take it on as their own, as if the crime was done to them, and I think some of that was unintentionally kind of discussed in Halloween Kills. I think almost that what we get here is almost a response to that, as if they're saying, "Oh yes, we meant to do that. It was all intended. It wasn't." I think that what they explored in Halloween Kills, they did really heavy-handedly. A whole thesis on mob mentality, particularly within the world we live in. Yes, it was worth exploring, but it was hitting you over the head with it. I feel like here it's more subtly done. I mean, admittedly, a character does literally spell out what I've just said, which isn't very subtle, but the line of dialogue works within the setup, within what's going on. Like, it feels like that line of dialogue is necessary, is required. It feels like it would be natural for the character to say it in that instance. Whereas in Halloween Kills, people were just coming out with all this expository dialogue and inner monologuing, and it just felt really unnatural and forced in and shoehorned in, and just like it didn't work for me. Here, I feel like it works. I think on a script standpoint, more care has been taken. I think like the characters that we're getting are being better explored, and the themes that they're trying to explore with those characters are a bit more subtly done. As I say, I think the big clincher here is the whole Michael Myers deal. He's not in this film as much as you might expect. Don't get me wrong, he's in it, he goes to town, he gets down to business eventually, but I feel like a lot of people are going to be sitting there going, am I watching a Halloween movie? Or am I watching some art house drama? Like I say, it's very much about Laurie's granddaughter and this boy, and their past tragedies making them kind of right for each other in many ways. They're able to identify with each other in many ways. And so it becomes a story about their relationship. And I do think, if you're not interested in that stuff, if you want the kills, you're going to be sat there thinking, what's going on? Get to it already. The analogy I made about Jason Goes to Hell, I'm not a Friday the 13th fan. So when I watched Jason Goes to Hell, when I did my run through, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It was a breath of fresh air because it broke from the formula. It did something different. It was wacky. It was crazy. It went off on all weird tangents. And I was like, okay, I can get down with this. I could understand why it didn't work for fans of Friday the 13th. But because I didn't have that strong fan attachment, I was able to accept it on its own terms. And I think the same can be said with this one. While I love the original Halloween movie, I can take or leave pretty much most of the sequels. So I've never been that attached to it in the sense that you've got to give me this, you've got to give me this, and you've got to give me this. No, they do something a bit different here. Doesn't always work, but for the most part it does. And I can get down with that. I can roll with it. It suits me perfectly fine. Jamie Lee Curtis's performance here is brought down a notch. I think in the last film it was just I couldn't take her seriously at all. She was like making everything about her and giving these big speeches that seemed to come out of nowhere, and it just felt weird. Here we find a character who's accepted that she can't control the world. She can't control what's going to happen, so she may as well enjoy the time she's got. So she wants to settle down with her granddaughter, try and make a home for them, and just enjoy life as it comes. I prefer this Laurie. I prefer this Laurie Strode, to be honest. Does it feel slightly unnatural? A bit weird that we got a woman that spent 40 years of her life becoming a hardened, trained survivalist, and then all of a sudden she's like, actually no, I'm gonna be a happy homemaker. It feels like one of them things where like the writers kind of need it to happen, so they're just going to make it happen, which fine, whatever. It's the world we live in. It's the Hollywood movie that they can do whatever they want. But I will say again, I prefer this Laurie Strode to the one we got in Halloween Kills. So fine, I'll roll with it. We get a bit more in this film as well between Will Patton's character, the sheriff character that we saw in Halloween Kills. We get a bit more between him and Laurie, and I like it. I like the relationship there. It feels a bit more natural in this one. It feels like, okay, they didn't quite earn it in Halloween Kills, but because we've already had that basis, it's already been established, I feel like here it can breathe a bit more. It feels a bit more natural, and I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing these two together. I want them to get together. That's the thing about this movie in general, is that I do actually care a bit more about the characters. It all feels a lot less melodramatic. You know, Kills, the melodrama was really cranked up to here. Here, it's a lot more downplayed, a lot more subtle. The interactions between people feel a lot more natural to me, but because there isn't the histrionics, because there isn't a murder every 5 minutes, that might disengage hardcore fans. There is some melodrama towards the end of the film when there's a particularly big moment that involves a lot of the townsfolk of Haddonfield that I just kind of feel like it's a bit like trying to go big, trying to make a bigger deal out of something that needs to be made, maybe. But whatever. At this point, I'm past caring. I'm just glad we didn't get all that throughout the whole running time of the film. There is some ideas in this film that I feel like they tried to explore stuff that was set up in a previous Halloween movie. I won't say which because I don't want to give anything away. Like I say, I'll probably go into it more in my spoiler review. But there's a particular thing that happens in one Halloween movie where I feel like it was never really taken to its fullest potential. It was abandoned. And I feel like the guys who've made this film have gone, well, that was a good moment. That was a good thing to explore. Let's actually do it this time. So I feel like, yeah, if you take that particular Halloween film, or certainly that moment from the Halloween franchise, and you crossbreed it with Jason Goes to Hell, you get this movie. John Carpenter is back for this one, doing the score again, and it's great. I think his score throughout these three movies has been something of a highlight. It's been probably the best thing about all three of them. I don't think that overall this trilogy feels incredibly planned. You know, I feel like they said, "Do you think you can get 3 movies out of this?" I said, "Yeah, sure, we'll manage it." But it doesn't feel like really cohesively laid out in the way that, you know, the recent Planet of the Apes trilogy was, or Lord of the Rings, or anything like that. It just like, yeah, we got some ideas we can explore. We'll make the rest up as we go along. But as an ending to this trilogy, it's satisfying enough. It's probably my favourite entry out of the 3. And yeah, I enjoyed the ride. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I'll be intrigued to see what I think of it next year. The tradition so far for these movies is that I've watched them pretty much on opening night. I've really enjoyed them, and then the following year, in the run-up to Halloween, I watch it again, and not so much. So hopefully next year, in the run-up to Halloween, it'll be on TV. I'll watch it, and hopefully, yeah, my feelings will remain. But for now, 3.5, and best of the 3. So there you go. That is my non-spoiler review for Halloween Ends. As I say, look out for either tomorrow or the day after, depending on when I get my bum around to editing it. Look out for my spoiler review. I'll go into it in a lot more depth. But yeah, if you have seen Halloween Ends, please do let me know what you thought about it down in the comments, and let me know which is your favourite of the 3 from this trilogy by David Gorden Green. I know they're not, none of them are a particularly high bar, but there you go. Yeah, Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.